Hello everybody. It's Friday morning, and as I posted in my last picture of a card, I'm supposed to be cleaning, but I got sidetracked. So anyway, I just thought I would take a few minutes today and go over, because some of you have asked how I make backgrounds. I've posted quite a few cards lately that have backgrounds like these, and it's really a very simple process, and I can kind of explain it, but I thought, well, since people have asked for videos, I'll just go ahead and do a video on it. Here's some extras that haven't been made up into cards yet, but just to show you what they look like before they're made into cards. I'm going to have to go through several steps, and I'll have to step out of the camera for a minute to do some of it, to run it through my Big Shot. I don't really like to run the larger, thicker embossing folders through my Gemini, so I have an old style Big Shot here that I'll have to step off and do that in a minute. But what you'll need for this is just some backgrounds, and I'm going to show you. These don't have to be anything special. These are just some, actually these are things like this one is where I dabbed up ink off of a napkin and just put it on a piece of cardstock, so that works. This is just some ink on watercolor paper, and this is another one that was just where I dabbed it up and then I soaked up some ink that I had on my glass mat because I didn't want it to go to waste. So these are three that I'm going to work on, and then you'll need embossing folders, and I'm going to try one this morning that is not a 3D. I really like that particular embossing folder. I don't know how much depth I'll get, so we'll see how that one turns out. And then I have a couple of the Tim Holtz 3D fades, I think they're called, something to that effect, that we'll try those with it. The other thing you'll need is a brayer, and this, you can see mine's really dirty because I do gel prints and so forth, and I just like to put it in this, to the paint in that, just to keep it in one place. And what I'm going to use is just the little cheap bottles of white paint. And I'm doing white today. You don't have to do white. You can do any color you want. If you want to do black to make it really pop, you can do that. I would just be careful on really dark colors, making sure that the raised portion is not like the most prominent thing on the picture. For example, this one, don't think I'd want to do it in black on this particular side of the embossing folder, because it would be so much black, because you can see how much white is there. And as you can see, if you only put one coat of white on, the colors still kind of bleed through it. But the back side of this one, and this is not white, this is just where I sanded it, but you can see it's not as prominent as the front side. Or actually, I think this is the back side of the embossing folder and this is the front side. So you can maybe do that in black, and I might do that one on there just to see how I like it, since I've got it on both sides. This one's not overly prominent embossing, so I think black would be okay on it. This one for sure is not. This is a little diamond type embossing folder from Altenew, and you can see the back of it would be different. So anywhere that's raised on this, it would be painted, but I chose to do this side, which you're just actually touching the little dots on this one. Okay, and there's another cathedral one on this side, and I didn't paint this side. That's just where it's bled through, because it's just cardstock. It's not watercolor paper. Okay, so we'll get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to step off for just a second, and I'm going to run these through embossing folders. And really, with watercolor paper, you can certainly wet it ahead of time in an embossing folder, just to help it give you the best impression. Watercolor paper will hold the water. But I'll be honest with you, I'll probably do it on these two pieces of cardstock also, just to help it have the bbest impression of all. So my thing is just now to decide what colors I want on what. And this piece of paper is a little long. It's just not going to go all the way in, and that's okay. I'll cut it off at the end. So I'm going to put it in this embossing folder that has the alphabet on it. And before I do, I'm going to mist it with water. Since it has watercolor paint on the front, I have to be a little careful doing the front, because it'll make the watercolor paper bleed more. So I'm just going to line it up in here. Give me a second to go run it through. it's shaking the table. Okay. So that's the first one, and you can see, sort of see the alphabet there. It's not real distinct because I haven't painted it yet. So next I'm going to take this one and I'm going to run it through the squirrels, y'all, folder from Tim Holtz. And again, I'm just going to lightly wet this. And let's see how this one turns out. Okay, there is that one. Again, you cannot really see it yet, but you will. And the last one I'm going to do is the one that's not a 3D embossing folder. We'll try it. One more time, I'll wet it. And on this one, I'm going to have to pack a little bit more paper in there to make the impression a little deeper. So I've got some cardboard here that I just try to fill in and make it a tighter squeeze through the big shots. Sometimes I just have to keep adding more because it's just not doing it very heavily. Do y'all have that problem? I don't know. Maybe my big shot is just getting kind of worn out. I don't know, because I've probably stretched it. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to try it one more time. Yeah, that one's just not got enough pressure on it. I tell you what, I'll come back to that one later. I'm just not getting enough pressure to actually give much of an impression, so I must be missing a plate, which I'll get later, and I'll finish it and add it later. So now we've got these, and they're done, except for adding the white paint. If you want to put some splatters on these ahead of time, it's probably better to do it before you add the white paint. So I think on this one, because it's kind of modern looking, I will add some black paint splatters to it. And in doing that, I'm going to have to let it dry before I move on. I hope y'all are all having a good day. My oldest daughter, Sadie, she has her second prom tonight, so I get to go take pictures of her in about an hour away from here, so that's going to be fun. It's her senior year, and I'm a little sad about that, but, you know, she's part of growing up. Okay, so I'm just going to splatter a little bit of, because y'all know I like my splatters. And I'm probably getting ink all over, or paint all over my glass mat. It's going to end up on other things, but okay. So I'm going to let that set aside for a few minutes and let that paint dry. I might have to turn on the dryer and dry it out, but we'll see. So now, set that aside. We're going to roll this one. And this particular embossing folder, even though it's one of the deeper ones, it's not real deep. So when I brayer this on, I have to be really careful. But as you can see, this one has a lot of white space in it, so it's not critical if white gets down in places that you don't really want white, because there's already a lot of white space. And as you can see, let me go back to this card. Am I in the frame? Here we go. Okay, you can see I had to put a lot of white on this card because my brayer had other paint on it. And so it put a little pink in there. So I just kept putting, and still a little bit of pink, but I kept rolling white over it because I really wanted, you know, I wanted it to be very light colored. And so you can see where it gets paint down in the nooks and crannies, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not supposed to look perfect. It's supposed to look kind of shabby chic looking. So Anyway, so we're going to try that, but it's just important that you don't put too terribly much paint on the brayer. And it's not going to catch every high spot that you have. Your goal is to catch some of them so that you can at least determine what the pattern will look like. So I just very lightly kind of brush this over. And again, I'm not refilling my ink yet. I'm just trying to work with the ink I have. And then I'll paint, I keep calling it ink, and then I'll turn it and go the other way. Okay, now you can see the pattern a lot better, because when it was just a raised pattern, it would just be texture. It really wouldn't show up to the eye that much without really looking at it. But this way, you really make the images pop, okay? So that's basically how you do it. I can do this one. Let me just dry it real quick. Since I had black paint on there, I don't want it to run, so I'll go ahead and do it, because I think this one's going to look really cool. Now, Ginger used this particular embossing folder on a recent card that she made and posted, so I recommend that you go back and search for her name at the top and look at that card, because it's a beautiful card, and she used this particular embossing folder, which I like this embossing folder. I think it's whimsical. It's good, you know, if you want to make a kid's card, you can do something for a kid on it. So, or you can not. You don't have to do kid, but sometimes I struggle to find things that are good for kids, and I like the alphabet, especially for really young kids. So I've added some more paint to my little pad here. And again, I don't want it to be too much, because I don't want to get off the letters that much. And then I'm just going to lightly roll it across here. And you can see now how that pops. And see, I did get a little bit of paint on the rest of the card, but it doesn't really matter to me, because it's okay to look a little grungy. And sometimes I'll even go back and just rub white paint around the edges just to kind of tie the whole look in. So, and you can do that with your brayer. You can just kind of go around the edges, like where you don't have alphabet there. Just do around the edges just to grunge it up a little bit, okay? That's it, guys. I'll turn these into cards. I'll post them later, and I will also eventually get the other one to run through and make an impression. But it's going to be a lot harder because it's not a deep impression. That's it. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It was quick. Everybody have a great day. Talk to you later.